It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Thursday, the first day of summer. Gary, how are you?
Not bad. Just laughing at this headline here. The Resistance sequel will be even worse. This is from... oh, by the way, hi, how's everybody doing? Good morning and all that stuff, but I'm in the middle of stuff.
We hope you're staying cool in the Northeast. All that,
And it's...
Don't wear pants.
When I was coming in, I was listening to some of the national news, and it's funny because I think of last August when we were up to 109, 110, 111, Phoenix, whatever, and it's just, people go on with their lives. Now, I will say this. One of the reasons that it's more serious up there is because there's fewer air conditioners. Everybody has air conditioning down here. Now, more people now have air conditioning than when I was growing up. When I was growing up, nobody had air conditioning in their homes.
Yeah.
And so when you would have an 80-degree day or an 80-degree night, when it get down to 78, 79, 80 degrees, you might have upper 80s during the day, and there'd be a lot of humidity. It was bad. I mean, it was. I remember as a kid growing up.
Yeah. Well, in West Texas, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, lived in West Texas in this tiny town. It would get so hot in the summer. I'd go there and stay there for a few weeks, and all she had was this swamp cooler, one swamp cooler in one corner of the house, and that was it. That thing would just spit water on you. That's basically how you got cool.
Yeah, you wonder how people actually made it, for example, in the 1920s in Dallas.
Yeah,
or
in the Dust Bowl.
Or in San Antonio or anywhere. I mean, how did people actually live? How did they do it? And thank you to William Carrier, who invented air conditioning.
Yeah, I have a couple of his namesakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, does anybody know, I know you do because we've talked about it before, do you know where air conditioning was invented?
Ottawa.
Nope.
Iceland.
What is always viewed as having the worst winters?
Ottawa.
In the United States, Eric.
Oh, Dalhart. I'm only partially wrong on that one. I do get partial credit for that.
Air conditioning was invented in Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, because Carrier was from the area, and they actually invented it for I think it was a steel making process. It was for commercial use for something, and it was like, oh wow, well, we guess we can use this for other for other things to keep people cool.
Other people might like this.
Yes. But I was sitting there, I was reading here this. When we came on the air, the Resistance sequel will even be worse. The New York Times thinks it's important to tell you that the resistance to the new Trump administration has already started. The importance to the Times of this message is underscored by its printing more than 2,800 words in the widely read Sunday edition, bylined by 4 senior national reporters. The article warns that the early timing, volume, and scale of the planning underway to push back against a potential second Trump administration are without precedent. Well, like it's been nothing now.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like the lawfare and everything else. No, we haven't got started yet. But what I find fascinating is resistance today, revolution today, being a progressive revolutionary today is not about people's individual rights. It's about agreeing with the bureaucracy and moving away from the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
Not caring about wanting to end freedom of speech, wanting to end freedom of religion. We ended the show yesterday. And by the way, that died really quick today. I didn't see anything on it. It's like the buzz was gone on this whole democracy versus republic. That sort of disappeared CNN was on it, with the reporter out there saying, trying to make it sound like Trump supporters say we don't live in a democracy, that we live in a republic. Now, this is very bothersome, as in the past you had major Republican political figures talk about a democracy, and then they have, Reagan on there and Bush on there, and the democracy must be saved and, everything else. And we just said, what a stupid argument that is. I mean, just a stupid argument. They're doing word plays. And, of course, we went back to the history of, what was being used at the beginning of the country. They used both. They used republic. And in the Constitution, you'll find actually republic referenced, as we brought up yesterday. Democracy and republic at that point were the fact that wherever you go, they were generally used terms that were interchangeable back then to show that you weren't for a monarchy. You were trying to separate yourself from a monarchy, and whether it was a direct democracy, which of course they had no intention of doing, a direct democracy, or as we have a constitutional republic. Both are different because the people are voting either directly or the people are voting for their elected representatives. It's not a monarch in charge. Right. So they were interchangeable. So over the years, the umbrella of democracy includes constitutional republics, parliamentary systems, and our Constitution of the United States, the general. But when you get to the actual operation of the government through the Constitution, we are a republic.
Yes.
And that's as simple as it is. And they're trying to make it sound like they're not for democracy.
Right. Well, because what they were doing is they're trying to edge up to the line of they don't believe in, basically they believe, I don't know. What's odd is in 1 minute they're trying to position it as the Trump followers believe that their mob should rule. By the way, it's the left that believes their mob should rule.
No. That's the great point. No, yeah. Go ahead.
And then on the other hand, they also want you to believe they don't believe in the voting system.
Right.
That the Trump people don't believe in the voting system. They don't believe in a democracy. They don't believe people should have a say-so.
Right.
And what it reeks of is the left being very, very aware now that the numbers don't look good for Biden and that there's a decent chance he's going to win.
Well, now it's really interesting because you had the Fox News poll, then another poll come out and show Biden doing better. Mm-hmm. And immediately I get phone calls from my friends. What does that mean? What does that mean? I said, stop paying attention to the daily polls as if they're the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
We'll get back to this in a bit here because I want to stick on the democracy thing. But the Fox polling showing that that Biden has moved up past Trump, and if you take everybody into consideration, Biden has a 1-point lead. All are within the margins of errors of the last polling.
Yeah,
and so when you see it, look, there's when you have the Des Moines Register poll come out and say that Trump is up 18 points. It's a pretty respected poll. Again, we don't look at any one poll and say it's a be-all, end-all. But when you have that, and when you have what I see as sticking, which is Trump is doing better in all the swing states post-conviction, and when you see what happened in Iowa, there's no way if it's true in Iowa that Trump is really up by 18 points, if that's true, he wins the election.
Yeah.
Because it shows where the Midwest is going.
Right.
That's a huge swing.
It's an indication too of the independents in the Midwest and where they are.
And when you see, for example, Arizona, how Trump is doing so well there, Nevada, and all of those states, there's some kind of disconnect, and I don't know what it is in the polling. That's why I said don't take it seriously. What you look at is where the polls start going in September and October.
Well, that's why even, when we were looking at the Iowa poll, when it first hit, it was like, okay, is this an outlier? Because of the huge, huge swing and difference between that and other polls. Then you look at the breakdown of it. And do I believe that RFK Jr. has 9 points on the average. No, might he have 9 point? Might he gain 9 points or get 9 points in Iowa? I guess we'll see. But again, you include the margin of error, and Trump is way outperforming,
right?
Far beyond the margin of error. And also, you look at where the issues are and where we believe the polls actually should be in many of those states. They're not going to be there in California. They're not going to be there in Oregon or Washington State, but they are definitely going to be there in some areas, and that's indicative, if it's accurate, that's indicative of not only where the Midwest is, but where the independent voter might be in that region, not just Iowa.
Yeah, so the stories are, even though those polls were out and the Democrats jumped on that, see, the rebound is coming out, Trump is in for it.
Yeah,
At the same time, the stories are out there, the Democrats saying Biden is focusing on all the wrong things, all the wrong things, all the wrong things. I will say this to Republicans, because do not mistake rally size for support. Not that it can't be indicative of the fact that you have growing support. It might be, but it also might not be.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's not necessarily a tell because of the built-in celebrity that comes with Donald Trump. A lot of people will show up to a rally, and they may not ultimately vote for Donald Trump. It could be, as you mentioned, it could be that there's this massive new groundswell, but it doesn't necessarily fit in that category, and that's the asterisk here, is that he's been a household name and he's a celebrity, and he draws pretty sizable crowds wherever he goes.
Yeah, so don't mistake that as, okay, we have no, because you see it all the time, especially on social media.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way Trump can lose because of this. No, there is a way Trump can lose.
Mm-hmm.
You always act as if you're 20 points behind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that's where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that's the mindset of the Trump campaign. I think there's a tremendous amount of confidence in there. I look at a couple things, for example, because if you say, okay, has Trump lost a couple of points? I don't know. You really can't tell. But if he has, these would be my concerns as a political consultant. Number one, the campaign came out and the surrogates all came out and said the whole thing with don't tax tips is great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Trump, over the last 6 years, has built it where the working person believes in him and believes he'll be fair. When you come out and say, well, if you make tips, you don't have to pay taxes, but everybody else in that wage group has to, you're splitting people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to come up with the plan to say everybody benefits here. You don't pick and choose. I mean, that's, for example, the college loan thing that Biden's doing. I'm going to pick the winners. I'm going to pick the losers. When you've united, when Trump has done, and I credit Trump for this, as an incredible thing as making it so the working, you don't hear anymore. The Republican Party is for the rich and the Democrat Party is for the working man. You don't hear that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Democrats said the working man. They didn't say the working person back then. I want to make that clear. That's why I'm using that slogan.
Yes.
And so that would be a concern I would throw at the campaign. The other one is his focus on tariffs is scaring conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
To say you're going to have 10% across the board tariffs on everything coming into the country, and then was it 60% on Chinese, and then claim it will have no effect on the economy, all conservatives know you're lying.
I think to that end, I think what is also scaring conservatives is that you had his surrogates, you had a number of Republicans in the party that started defending the whole tariff thing. And when they were doing that on the campaign trail and talking about it, I think that got people's attention, saying, well, wait a minute, now it's not just Trump, it's other Republicans talking about it, and conservatives, I think, are concerned. Because I think we have to go back to the first term and the steel tariffs and how that happened. Remember, that happened on the fly. The announcement was on the fly. And people were like, whoa, And so the unpredictable nature, combined with the fact that he's been talking about it and now has other Republicans promoting it, is what's concerning.
You can't, as a Democrat, say that raising the minimum wage to $20 an hour isn't going to have an effect in California.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows when you raise the cost of goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how you do it, whether you do it in minimum wage, whether you do it in tariffs, and then to come out and say, will have no effect, well, then you're agreeing with the Democrats' economic philosophy. Right. Conservatives who pay attention to economics knows that. Those are the two things I look at over the last week and go, maybe that could move 1 or 2%
and
in a particular way.
And repositioning it with tying it to doing away with the income tax was kind of a deal breaker if you think about it, because they're not going to do away with the income tax. That's not going to happen in our lifetime. I'm convinced. But the problem is that I don't think he's totally anchored to that position. He can do tariffs without having to change the income tax at all, and that's the concern because he's done it before. And you don't want to do that. You can't do that. That's going to hurt the economy, and there's no way around it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have floated the idea of doing away with the income tax. They know the consumer pays it. They can say what they want. The consumer pays the tariff. Full stop. And there's no way around it.
And you made that case. You go, look, they claim there's going to have no effect, and that it's not a tax because that's what the as the RNC spokesperson said. Anybody who says it's a tax is just, relating communist China propaganda, which is a load of horse manure.
But they tied it to the income tax.
Right.
And said, we'll do away with this one over here. So you're admitting it's going to affect people, and they're the ones who pay. And
those are the two things over this week where probably the average person doesn't realize those things can have an effect when you go, well, wait a minute here. Why do those people get something and we don't? And you've built the last couple of years uniting and actually getting the working person to want to vote for you. And then you say, okay, we're going to benefit this working person, but not you over there. You don't get a benefit. You don't need to do that.
Right.
866-90-RED-I.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. Retreads have a reputation for causing that rubber debris or gators found on the sides of the highway. However, studies show that 68% of the tire debris collected on the highway comes from new tires, not retreads. The reality is that retreads will wear at the same rate as new tires if you don't properly maintain them. Retreads are still a major investment and require engaged maintenance practices.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So those, and again, I'm not saying that the polls are moving Biden's way. I'm saying if they've moved 1 or 2 points, that might be something that you want to refocus on and how you promote that. If you're both on tariffs and the minimum wage, or not minimum wage, excuse me, the no tax on tips.
Well, especially on taxes, you can go, look, we want to make the tax cuts permanent. We want to move to keep doing what we were doing before, lower taxes for everybody, keep those taxes low, bring back your spending power, those kind of things, and apply it to all.
But how the campaigns are reacting, I don't think they buy it, that there's been movements in the poll towards Biden. And one of the reasons is they're hiding him now.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a full week to prepare for a debate.
No, it does not.
They're hiding him, so they don't want him in the public.
The show that never stops. Red iRadio.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, you want to know where liberalism is today?
All right.
Here's an audio cut. This shows you where liberalism is today. Now, this is a woman at a school board meeting back in May. Brownsville, Texas. School board meeting. And she's up there, and she's reading from the actual books and the vulgar sexual language in these books.
That are available to those school children.
That are available to all the school children in the high school. The school board will not let her speak because it's too vulgar for adults to hear at a school board meeting.
Yes.
So which means you can't have a conversation on the books, the age-appropriate books, in public schools in Brownsville because nobody in public can read from the books because it's too vulgar.
Yeah.
It's too vulgar for adults. It's just right for kids.
Right. Let us quietly indoctrinate your children, please.
Yeah.
Quit talking about it.
I mean, this is unbelievable. Here it goes. And I made sure that thank goodness they cleared out the profanity. She started reading from the book, and then I think they turned off her mic. But here we go.
Thank you.
I have a First Amendment right for my 1 minute, and I want my 1 minute back.
I need some silence in the back.
So you can use your 1 minute. We just can't use vulgarities in the language.
I can't help it. The vulgarity is in the books that are in your high schools.
Sure, just don't read it.
Why can I not read it?
Ma'am, we need to keep going. So if you can follow the rules, because we do have people after you.
I've got about 17 seconds left, so I'm going to keep going.
As long as it's not vulgar. Yes, ma'am.
I can't help it. If you don't like vulgarity, stop buying it for the children.
She starts reading it right there, and then they cut off her mic.
Off the mic, please.
It's already off. I don't need a mic because God gives me power to come and take it. Excuse me?
We need to keep going, ma'am.
They can't answer the question.
They can't.
They can't because the thing is, answer my question. If it's why can't adults hear it and children? Well, we need to move on. 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 This is the pure insanity of the left.
Yep.
Any Democrat defend this.
Yep.
It's not age appropriate for adults, but it's age appropriate for our children.
Yeah.
I mean,
as long as you
bizarre.
don't bring it up and say it out loud, we can quietly indoctrinate your children.
Yes.
How dare you try and protest out loud with such vulgarity?
Yes. How dare you? Our ears are too sensitive. Well, somebody had to approve the book, right?
Yeah.
And if you approve if you approve the book, somebody had to go through these passages and somebody had to say this to somebody so we knew what the contents of the books were, right?
Yeah.
We need to move on. We need to move on. We can't answer any questions. We're the school board. We know. I'm telling you, one of the things that used to tick off my father more than anything. My father would go to school board meetings, and one thing you don't tell John McNamara is my father, I can guarantee you, was probably in every meeting he was ever in business and industry, was probably the smartest person in the room. And you know how you knew that? Because all he did was ask questions. And I've always told it to him. He goes, "Oh, thanks so much." I mean, he would never ever say that, but I can say that.
Yeah.
It's the family, the people that know him will say, "No, he was really always the smartest guy." He wasn't saying it, and it wasn't done in a political way. It was just like, no, he's the guy that asked questions. And it was my father, like I said, when you have the reputation that every time you speak, remember my dad's motto, never be wrong. You're in a business meeting, you're never wrong. You need to be right, as he told me many times. You need to be right 100% of the time. He said, "Well, it's impossible, Dad. Nobody can be right 100% of the time." He goes, "Yes, you can, because if you're not sure you're 100% right, shut up." And that always stayed with me my entire life, but he was at a school board meeting one time, and somebody was asking a question. It wasn't him. And they said, look, we are the experts. We have the degrees. We are the ones that are basically highly educated and know how to teach your children.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. My father,
Yeah.
He was so angry at that one.
Well, and I've run into that as a parent. And our kids were very young then, and man, it was maddening. It was the attitude, well, listen, we as a group know better collectively, essentially, than you two. You two don't have the experience, because our kids were young. It was maddening. I was waiting for somebody in this meeting here to say, you can't read them out loud. There are children in the room. I was waiting for somebody to throw that excuse down. And I'll tell you, moments like that go viral. We talked about it with Loudon. We talked about it with this entire series of events that's happened, all the stuff in Florida. And what the liberals don't understand is you are going to war with the parents. And viral moments like that are shared over and over again by other parents. They see it and say, what in the world is going on? In fact, viral moments like that could well be bringing people into the conversation that aren't aware of what's in some of the books in public schools. And you will have a number of parents that say, whatever, they watch everything on Netflix. I don't care what's in the schools. Yeah, but the ones who do care are the ones that are outraged and want it to end.
And now think about this. We know that whether it was DeSantis in Florida, they're talking about age-appropriate material, books and whatever, for children.
Mm-hmm.
What did the left come out and say that they were doing? They came out with the generic, they want to ban books, as if it's the right that wishes to ban books from adults. And that's not the point. The point is that we're talking age-appropriate content, and, well, we shouldn't censor the children. We always censor the children. Shut up. We always do. Age-appropriate, something that the vast majority of the population agrees with. But think about what they're doing right here. The school board that wants this material in schools, and it's not age-appropriate, wants to ban the reading of it from adults in public because it's so offensive.
Right.
So actually, it's the left that wishes to ban this material from adults, which is the false claim that Democrats put on Republicans on a consistent basis.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great point. And they're the ones that are protesting. They're the ones that are looking to remove it. They're removing it from the meeting. They don't want it present in the meeting.
Right.
How dare you bring that to our meeting?
We need to censor this from adults, but kids must be able to read it.
Right.
But we don't want to hear it.
Right. And
we don't want you, and we don't want anybody else to hear it. And you don't have freedom of speech here when you're talking about adults.
Well, remember the whole thing in Florida. DeSantis wants to ban books. You know who also wanted to ban books? Hitler. I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
And this is exactly where we are. We know what the indoctrination is. And we've been aware of this kind of behavior for quite some time now. And parents have the right to be outraged, and it should be removed from public schools. If something happens and kids are exposed to it in the home, that's between the parents and the children. To have all kids exposed to it in a public school system is wrong, and we all know that.
And then to say that, no, it's age appropriate, but adults cannot discuss it at a school board meeting,
right?
Because it's too vulgar,
right?
You're making the point.
Yep. Yeah.
You're making the point.
There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you're of age, then there's nothing wrong with her reading it out loud.
Right. And they won't answer the question why. She's saying, well, wait a minute, why not? We need to move on. We need to move on.
Yep.
It can't be vulgar.
Yep.
Well, explain to me. We don't need to explain to you, you peon, because we are the elite educators.
That's right.
We are the ones with all the smarts.
Yeah.
You don't know and you don't understand how to teach children because it is this incredibly complicated algorithm that only we, the highly educated, are able to figure out. Oh, go to hell.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah. And you wonder why the conversation on vouchers is picking up steam again.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Did you see that, the Condi Rice thing? You want to hear this? This is Condi Rice school choice. It was promoted like crazy yesterday. Condi Rice nails the school choice argument in 60 seconds.
So are you for school choice or not? We already have a choice system in education. If you are of means, you will move to a district where the schools are good and the houses are expensive, like Palo Alto, California. If you go across the street from Stanford, Palo Alto High has a performance arts center that looks like a smaller version of Stanford's. If you're really wealthy, you will send your kids to private schools. So who's stuck in failing neighborhood schools? Poor kids. A lot of them minority kids. So how can you say you're for civil rights? How can you say you're for the poor when you're condemning those children to not being able to read? By the time they're in third grade, they're never going to read. So if you want to say that school choice and vouchers and charter schools are destroying the public schools, fine. You write that editorial in the Washington Post, but then don't send your kids to Sidwell Friends.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. I wish she would run.
I was saying that right there, man, just like, oh, man. Because
I wish she would
and
run.
I wonder if she, as she gets older, whether she's considering it, because that you can see the anger in her face.
Yeah.
And normally you don't see that from her.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, with everything that's being pounded, she's always viewed herself, and she is more of an educator, than a politician. But that was really good.
And quite frankly, we need that kind of pragmatic approach.
Yeah.
We really do.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What many on the left believe when it comes to open borders. You're not going to believe this audio that we have. You're not going to. Well, you might.
Yeah, given the source, you might.
You might. Yeah, given the source, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. I can believe
It's a lesson in how clueless people can be and still have confidence enough to talk about things they know nothing about. It's also a lesson in how clueless people can be having been around for a while and seen so much. That always boggles my mind. How did you not learn something? How did you not once look at things and say, oh, okay, maybe it's this way. After being on the planet, this person is a middle-aged, beyond middle-aged, whatever. And they just seem to not learn, but that's how the liberal brain works.
And also the statement put out by Emerson College yesterday, if you saw that, low enrollment, probably going to have to lay off, including faculty. And one of the reasons that they give, the pro-terrorist protest and people being harassed on campus by the pro-terrorists, the pro-Hamas terrorists, which is the left in this country, as we all know. But they admitted it. They put it in their statement as one of the reasons why they have low enrollment. So that's the feedback they're probably getting from students and parents who say, nope, sorry, not going to put our student there. I really wonder, because these, you start up school again in September before the election. This is all going to continue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If there's not a ceasefire or whatever, it's going to continue.
Yep.
And it's just, and what you're seeing is already, because of the cost of college and because of the courses and the degrees out there, people realize there isn't a return on the investment of so many degrees out there now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you forgive all the loans or whatever. Most people know, well, if I go to college now, my loan probably won't be forgiven, because it won't be.
Right.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, good morning. Hello. Thinking to myself, the audio cuts this week have just been so great, and you and I were thinking, okay, tomorrow we've got to figure out what to take all these audio cuts and play them all at once, which we're going to do on tomorrow's show, because it's so bizarre, and it shows you where liberalism is going.
Yeah,
from the mayoral debate in San Francisco, where Mayor London Breed asked one of the challengers in a debate if he could name 3 drag queens.
Yeah,
and we just went, that's how unserious liberalism is today.
Yep.
That's basically a qualifying factor. If you wish to be mayor of San Francisco, you've got to name your 3 favorite drag queens.
Exactly.
I mean, my God. And then we played the woman at the school board meeting in Brownsville, Texas.
Right.
That was reading from what she views as age-inappropriate material in the library, books in the library that she says are not appropriate for that age group. They would not let her read from the book because it was too offensive for adults. And so the school board was attempting to censor and ban books from adults. Yet it's acceptable for children. And then this one comes up. We talk a lot about the border, and we know how insane things are at the border and how the public thinks about it right now, to the point where you've got now over 60% of America wants mass deportation of illegal immigrants. What does the left think? Now, again, he's on the left, and he's an idiot. He's a comedian. I guess he has his place in comedy over the last 20 years, right? I mean, he's made
a lot of money doing it.
Made a lot of money doing it. Had the TV show. Mm-hmm. He also had to admit that he was, masturbated in front of women.
Yeah,
we're talking about Louis C.K.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if somebody thought it was okay, remember he first denied it.
Mm-hmm.
He first denied, I didn't do it, and then he finally admitted, yeah, I did all of it.
Right.
Oh, I just didn't know. Shut up. But here he is explaining why the left wants open borders. I suggest you stop doing what you're doing unless you're driving.
Yep.
Because you'll want to hear this insanity, but I do believe what he says mirrors a significant portion of people on the left.
Oh, yeah. No, I think so.
Here we go.
Okay. But my feeling is they should open it, the border, and just let them pour in, let everybody pour in, and then the answer, which is, well, then there'll be all these problems. Yes, there should be. It shouldn't be so great here, is what I'm saying. in America. It shouldn't be. It's a weird thing to sequester a certain group of people and try to keep upping their lifespan and their lifestyle, and just keep trying to increase that for this group of people, and then this pressure of people trying to come in so they can enjoy it. And then it gets worse and worse down here. I mean, I'm not in Canada. It's really just from down here. There's something wrong with that. That's not a system that's working, and it forces people to do cruel things to other people. There's a lot of people that die so Americans can be safe. They're just dying, weddings that are drone bombed in Yemen because the guy said something that might have resulted in American insecurity. Not even like definite American deaths, but like just so we can breathe a little easier. Folks die, and folks do labor in unsafe places so that we can keep the prices where we like them. There's so much about American life that other people pay for. That's part of it, but also it's not good for us either. It's not a good way to live in a gated community. If you let folks pour in like any other wave, it'll kind of slosh, and then things will be different. I don't know, what'll really happen? A bunch of people, will they just come with knives and start killing everybody? I don't think so.
Well, there you go.
It's about as thoughtless of an expression as I've heard in the last 10 minutes. And it's this, this idea of, it's so horrible. It's so horrible. Let them all in because we have it too good, says the guy who's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars and believes he wouldn't be affected by it. In fact, he's so delusional that he's trying to tell you that he's trying to imply that people who want to do us harm wouldn't come in during an open border, and we actually know that to be a fact. Talk to the FBI and the arrests that were made of those that are associated with terrorist groups recently, and what is known about terrorists being on American soil. But then, that's the other part of it, is that he's trying to say we shouldn't go after terrorists because they make a threat. No preemptive strike. We should sit here and take it.
Well, look, being a member of ISIS, number one, you're an enemy of the United States to begin with, and it's based on not just what you say but your behavior. So that's inaccurate to begin with. But what I found really interesting is, and we've talked many times about this. We've talked, number one, about identity politics. We've talked about reparations. Now you see Chicago wanting it, and the mayor bringing it up. And you see, for example, in California, the insanity of the whole reparations movement. But we're not surprised by it. You have, when you look back at the history of the Democratic Party and where they stand now, and this is just fact, there has never been an institution in America that has been as organized and well-funded to promote slavery and Jim Crow laws than the Democrat Party. And today, what they promote is identity politics, which is the same thing. They judge people by groups and not individuals. So no wonder I believe that liberals have a lot of guilt. They have a lot of guilt because they practice identity politics. They know it's wrong. They stereotype people. They know it's wrong. They know the history of their party, and they know it's wrong. And I believe part of the reparations movement is part of that guilt that they have because they believe they're intolerant and racist, and there's guilt over it. The same thing here, where you've got Louis C.K. and we know socialists talking about the fact that it's too good here. Remember the whole Bernie Sanders thing with deodorants. There's too many government needs to come in and regulate the number of deodorant products that can be sold because we don't need to have that. Things are too good. The left actually believes that a successful country, by the way, that promotes freedom and liberty not only here, but over our history everywhere else. Everywhere else it is promoted. We want all these other countries to be able to go down the exact same path that we do. Our goal is not to dilute the greatness of the United States and, take the United States and the quality of life here down to make you feel good because you feel you have it too great, and it's just wrong for a society to promote for the general welfare of its own population. You should be saying, this works here. We need, through our foreign relations, to ensure and encourage other countries to go, if they wish to be like us and have this success, because the people crossing the border are not coming, the majority are not coming to have a society that mirrors where they're coming from.
Well, he's defeating his own point.
Right. They're coming for they're coming for the greatness and the potential that they believe they can get there. And by the way, America, for its entire, history, it's except for short periods of time, especially now when we see the illegal immigration, and America's like, well, we don't want legal immigration because they're just so disgusted with what the Democrats have done. But we have a long, unprecedented history of legal immigration to this country and a process to get there. So it's not that we've said, no, we wish to close ourselves off completely. That's a false concept that he brings up. But what I find interesting is liberalism hates the fact that this country has been successful in raising the quality of life for Americans. They hate that.
Well, you hear the disdain. It's not something just that he believes. It's something that drives him crazy. You hear the anger in his words, and he defeats his own argument, by the way. Let them all flood in. Well, why would they want to flood in? Just the simple statement of saying we have it too good. What do you mean too good? What you're trying to say, it's bad. Well, then why do they all want to come here? And that's something that, again, this is why it's thoughtless. At every turn, it's thoughtless. But it's what you expect from somebody who is angry that we do have it so good. He's angry that capitalism is working so well. A guy who's, by the way, benefited to the tune of tens of millions of dollars of wealth over the years.
Remember, it's also a guy who believed it was okay to masturbate in front of women. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, you've got to bring that. When somebody makes no sense at all, you've got to take everything of their life into context.
Yep.
Because that's what he was doing.
You got to talk about the nature of who the person is.
Right. And the warped mind that he has, but that warped mind, as we know, exists. We see it. We see it in our schools. Sorry, the standards are too high. We need to bring them down. Everybody needs to bring it down, the education system down. We don't need to bring everybody up. We need to bring it down. It's the same thing that he's saying here with the United States is the same thing that the left believes in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've said many times, the Democratic Party wants to keep Democrats and poor Democrats on the pathology of dependency.
Mm-hmm.
They want that. They want the inner city to have crime. They want the inner cities to not have jobs because that's how they stay in power, promoting over and over again to these same people, well, we're going to save you. The government's going to save you. The government's going to save you. And after 70 years of this, we see that they're not being saved.
Well, these are the people that celebrate. They honestly celebrate terrorist attacks on American soil. There's no way he doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, we deserve it. It happened, and we deserve it. It happens. It's our fault. These are the people who are the self-loathing, America-hating individuals. I don't know why he lives here. He can afford to live anywhere. Get the hell out.
Give all your money away.
And if we have proof that somebody in Yemen is a threat to Americans, an American interest, hell yeah, take him out and take his brother too.
Yeah, but we just don't. Where we said we just kill people for saying something.
Just for saying something, right?
That doesn't.
Yeah, that's why I qualified
right,
what
that's the lie.
That's why I qualified what I said. which he didn't. I was very careful to choose the words I chose. And he doesn't, because he doesn't care. He's filled with anger. Anger that he got caught masturbating in front of women? You were bound to get caught. You pervert. What the hell's wrong with you? Well, now we know, because we know fully how he thinks. We have it too good. Good. Stop going to his website and buying tickets to his shows. He has it too good.
Boo him. Heckle him consistently because he has it too good.
Or just don't show up.
Don't show. If you're going to show up, heckle.
Well, you've already paid the ticket price. He doesn't care.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company. But there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thank you for being here. There it is. Biden campaign creates special task force to mitigate cheap fake videos. They're going to lose that. They're not going to win that.
A task force. We're here for your cheap fakes. We're going to do something about it. We're forming a task force.
What are you going to do? You can't change social media.
No, can't.
The Biden campaign reportedly created a special task force to reduce the impact of videos that show the president malfunctioning in public. White House aides have become more sensitive about the videos of Biden and have begun to quarrel with their media allies about the coverage of Biden's age, gaffes, and videos exposing moments of strange confusion. The White House invented the term cheap fakes after a video on Sunday showed the former President Obama walking Biden off stage after the president appeared to freeze at a fundraiser. Another video from June 13th appeared to show Biden wandering off into the distance in Europe before the Italian prime minister turned him back to the group of would-be leaders watching a skydiving show. A third video showed Vice President Kamala Harris and allies dancing at a Juneteenth event while Biden appeared to stare blankly but not moving with an empty smile on his face. The campaign established a task force to mitigate the risks posed by cheap fakes, Biden officials told Politico. It is also the responsibility of social media companies and media allies to mitigate the impact of videos, the officials stressed. You need to start censoring again. Come on, we're getting closer to election time. You need to censor the truth.
That's that's where they can change social media. They did it before he was even president on the whole laptop thing. showing up at the FBI, showing up at Facebook, and of course we know from the Twitter files and what was going on there. So they can make an attempt to shut people down. How long before that starts happening?
Well, they've brought more attention to it every single really over the last week. Every single thing. I mean, there was the video of him, getting into the vehicle, and you know why that hit me? Because it took him a while to get in the vehicle. You could tell it was trouble for him to get into the seat. I'll be dealing with that tomorrow when I see Dad. Whenever we go anywhere, Dad, it takes a while to get in. You're old. And, now that may not have anything to do with his cognitive problems. That with my father's strictly physical, and as you get old, those things hurt more.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
Hey, it's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is actually a really interesting article that from National Review, Dominic Pino writing it. Just got a call to let me know that my student debt has been canceled. That's why elections matter. Thanks, Joe Biden. That comes from Ben Kamens, communications director for Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur of Ohio. Posted that on X yesterday. It included a picture of the letter he received from the company that services student loans. The letter begins, "Congratulations. The Biden-Harris administration has forgiven your federal student loan listed below with Nell Net in full," end of quote. Well, they haven't forgiven it. They've transferred it to someone else. Now, want to know the situation? This guy, his two loans were taken out in 2010. The original principal balances, $2,750 and $5,500. Again, he posted this on X so the entire world could see it. Goes, now let's look at this. So it goes, as the text of his message demonstrate, he's not the least bit ashamed about the fact that he, a grown man, a college graduate with a full-time job, was apparently unable to repay debt with principal of $8,250 over a span of 14 years. Puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know his life story, and there could be some kind of hardship in his life that made it difficult to accomplish. It is nonetheless true that lots of people with their own hardships are able to repay debt of that size according to the agreement they made when they took it out because they prioritized paying back their debts. But Kamens did not, and now his political party has decided to give him taxpayer dollars, your money, instead. As an added bonus, the letter notes that because of the American Rescue Plan Act, the balance of the loans forgiven is not considered taxable income at the federal level. Democrats want to step up tax enforcement with a larger IRS, but they wrote into a law that their personal one-time income for people who didn't pay back their student debt, a category that includes White House staff members in addition to their congressional staff, is tax-free. Kamens' post comes a day after the Congressional Budget Office added $400 billion to its deficit projection for this year. That includes a $145 billion increase in outlays due to the Biden administration's student loan programs. What is Kamens' takeaway? That is why elections matter. Yes, the sacred trust of democracy, where voters cast a secret ballot to make their voice heard in the political process, so the candidate who wins will give them money that the IRS took from other people. That's what elections are about, according to Kamens. Rarely is the Democratic political vision so clearly on display. And here's another point. You and I have talked about this. We've both been extremely poor at parts of our life.
We're in radio.
You were homeless at one point, living in your vehicle for a few months. by choice, as you've stated before.
I had a home. It was a 75 Dodge Dart.
Yeah. And at times in my life, I've had absolutely no money. I've never been late on a bill, ever.
Not once.
Ever. Didn't matter how poor I was never late on a bill. Never defaulted. Now, where does that come from? That comes from, my bringing up. That comes from my parents. You pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
You never brag about the fact that somebody else covered your loan. There's a shame factor that this is my responsibility and obligation, and no matter what I have to do, work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever, I will pay it back. And you can tell and see in that case, there's no shame. He's happy that someone else is taking care of the responsibility and obligation that he legally signed for.
By the way, $47 a month. Over 14 years, $47 a month.
Right.
Let's say his interest tripled that. Still, you can't afford that? That's what elections are all about?
Elections are about electing somebody who will nullify your contractual agreement and put the responsibility and obligation on somebody who did not take out that loan and who did not sign that contract. They view that as a good thing. I view it as shameful.
Yeah, they see it as a badge of honor.
Right. It's a badge of honor to them. We got some other sucker to pay off my loan that I could have easily paid off over 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I chose not to.
A good post would have been, hey, everybody, I was working an extra job to pay off my student loan, and check it out. I got it done. I did it. That's a good post.
Well,
that's when people are proud of something, of the work that they did, the effort they put in, and you should be proud of that.
About a year and a half ago, I paid off my mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I had refinanced it a few times, and the interest rate was so low that it was like I could have paid it off a ways back, but I was like, nah, the interest rate's so low on it. And then we were in the middle of COVID. I go, nah, don't do it. But as soon as really the COVID ended, I was making 6, 7, 8 payments a month, and I paid it off in a few months because my goal was just to, I didn't want that debt. I hate debt hanging around. I pay my monthly credit card. I do everything on my credit card because I get airplane miles. And sometimes I see the balance. I'm like, oh, my God, that's what it costs to live. And I'm not one that spends more because it's a credit card. I buy what I need, for that moment. I don't live an extravagant lifestyle. But when I paid off that mortgage, it meant a ton to me because it meant a ton to my parents when they paid it off. There used to be the mortgage burning parties.
Mortgage burning party.
Because people were proud of the fact that they worked hard so they could have a home. Now, Louis C.K.
Well, I was going to say, I had a friend of mine who had a mortgage burning party back in the day. The problem is it was right after he closed on the house. So it was at the beginning. That's not how it gets done.
Well, that was 2008, 2009, wasn't it?
Exactly. Look, I don't have to pay. Well, no. You're having a mortgage. The guy was essentially having a mortgage burning party, having not taken responsibility, having not done the work.
Yeah, that's a great point, yes. My loan's paid off by somebody else.
I'm celebrating. Yeah. Celebrating what? You didn't do anything. Somebody else did.
Right. That's the mentality of the boy. We're going to have a good show tomorrow with just all the things this week. The mentality of the left and how they think.
The mindset. On full display. For everyone who's paying attention, we've seen it before, but for anybody who needs any example, it's over and over again. And this week, man.
I know. It's just, wow, that's what liberalism has become.
Yeah. But that's it. Remember after Obama was elected, I've said, One of the things about using hope and change as your campaign slogan, actually it was brilliant politically, because everybody gets to take the blank canvas of hope and change and fill it in with their own watercolors. Look, he's going to pay my car. He's going to pay my student loan. And you had all this, and we were saying, well, hold on. Don't sit on your porch and wait for a check.
Remember the woman that was interviewed?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's where, yeah.
That's where you're coming from? That woman that was...
He's going to pay for my car.
He's going to pay my car. He's going to pay for my house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have to worry about any of my bills anymore.
Right.
That's what Obama was going to do when he got elected. That's what this woman thought, that everything, every problem she had was going to be taken care of, and every loan that she took out and every debt that she acquired would be paid off by somebody else. That was her joy.
A friend of mine is a dentist.
By the way, it didn't happen for her.
No, it did not. A friend of mine is a dentist. And he said the week after they signed Obamacare into law, he was getting calls saying, I need to get some work done. Well, do you have insurance? No, I have Obamacare. We've got Obamacare now. That's not for dental, number one. And number two, that's not how it works. Remember the couple out in California? We wanted Obamacare. We supported the idea of Obamacare. We didn't know we were going to have to pay for it. Oh, you thought it was single payer. People are delusional, and they buy into these delusional ideas that are floated to them that things can be free.
I believe they were the ones that got, when Obamacare came out, their insurance got canceled.
Right.
And so they had to go into the marketplace and buy it, and they couldn't believe to get a comparable insurance to what they had was so expensive. And
Yeah,
they
it was
were
hundreds of dollars a month, yeah.
They were furious,
Right.
and said, well, we're totally for Obamacare. We just didn't think we'd have to pay for it, which is the mentality.
No, that's it.
And that's a shame, because that is ingrained into my soul. I'm not, neither you or I are saying it to brag in any way, but when you do pay off debt and you struggle to do it, there is a great sense of accomplishment to doing it. As a former bill collector, when I help people pay their, I would get calls occasionally when people that got into too much debt, be a couple of years later, they got on a plan and they paid it off, and they would call me and say, I just want to let you know the whole, I didn't know that, because you only get them down when they come delinquent. They weren't delinquent anymore. Never forget getting a call a few times saying, we just want to let you know how proud we are of ourselves and thank you for your help, because we paid off our loans. We're debt-free right now. God, what a wonderful moment that was, because you normally don't get that as a bill collector.
Yeah.
That's normally not the response. But when you get that, you say, well, that's what it's about. And to me, that's in my soul. You do it. I understand if there's sickness, something like that, special circumstances. We all understand that.
I've had it happen.
Bankruptcy code exists for that reason, but you had it happen and still paid.
I sold assets. I had assets, and I didn't want to do it, but nobody wants to do it. That's just the way it works. You have to pay the debt first.
And it's something that's so ingrained of the culture that I grew up in. And, you know, you and I have talked about this before, and we talk about property rights in general. You know, I want you to respect my property rights, but I respect your property rights. And if I have debt, it's not my right to take property from you to pay my debt that I agreed to.
Right.
And in this case, across the board, didn't matter whether you had trouble paying it or there were special circumstances, you get it.
Right.
And they view that as somehow great virtue signaling on their part, like they've done something, you know, they've done something remarkable in paying off, you know, in not paying off their debt and having somebody else pay it off. It's a celebratory time. That's sick.
Yeah, but they don't care. It's how they think.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. Well, I'll tell you about the college that is admitting that enrollment is down, and one of the reasons, the protests, people don't feel safe on campus, and they may have to start laying off. It's going to be fascinating because we've already seen, Eric, over the last few years. I know it's something that Mike Rowe has covered, and the discussion on college, and is there a return on the investment for college for most people? Mm-hmm. And we can see now it's going in a different direction. A lot of people are realizing a lot of the degrees are getting to are garbage. Right. Gender studies isn't going to get you anywhere over the next 25 years. Mm-hmm. and so I think, this change is happening. And then on top of this, what has happened, with the pro-Hamas protest is that the majority of the country looks at this and goes, we can't go to these colleges because now the Ivy League is stained.
Yeah.
You think about it. The Ivy League is stained. Right. And so this is Emerson College, though, that, they're probably going to have to lay off, and probably faculty too, but warning that their enrollment is down. And one of the reasons is the protests, the harassment of students. It's like kids and parents are going, the hell, we're not going to go there. Then the money that you got to spend for some of these schools to begin with, it's just not worth it. It really isn't.
Yep. And, and then beyond the money, you got 4 years of that. You're going to be in that environment for 4 years? No way.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara, along with Eric Harley. Hi. Good morning. All right, come on. The left's going too far now.
Yeah?
Here it is. I got this from Breitbart, John Nolte. Sexist Huffington Post smears Taylor Swift as anti-feminist for being competitive. Come on, the left. Don't make it where I have to defend Taylor Swift in any way. Come on, don't do this to me. Mm-hmm. The sexist far-left Huffington Post is smearing Taylor Swift as anti-feminist for being too competitive against other girl musicians. In other news, Huffington Post is still in business.
Well, they do, in fact, are probably the foremost experts in their field on too much competition.
Fans are calling out Taylor Swift for being anti-feminist, reads the headline. The girls are giving Miss Swift the bombastic side-eye, and for a very good reason, reads the subheadline. Here's what they're crying over. Back in April, Swift released her latest album, The Tortured Poets Department. Of course, it sold a gazillion copies or downloads or streams or whatever it's called these days soon afterward. Others said that other female artists said they would be announcing new albums. So what did Swift do? The day before one of the album releases, she released 3 new editions of the Tortured Poets Department, which ensured that the other artists would not have a number one album.
Darn.
It gets better after it was reported that Charlie XCX's album Brat was on pace to hit the top spot on the UK charts. Swift dropped 6 new versions of Tortured Poets exclusively in the UK, which stole the number one spot from poor Charlie XCX, whoever the hell that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Huffington Post has some prissy, uptight deep thinks on all of this. I'm disappointed that Taylor Swift seemingly would try to block these artists from achieving the top spot on the charts. Given Swift's is this Louis C.K.? She's being too successful.
How dare you sell that many albums? And by the way, she is forcing all of her tens of millions of fans around the world to buy them.
Well, we are investigating here whether there's possible brainwashing for something you and I clearly cannot understand.
The aliens are here. That's all we're saying. Yeah. And she's one of them. That's also what we're saying.
Given Swift's immense status in the music world, it feels unnecessary and somewhat selfish to use these tactics to keep rising to the top. She has already accomplished so much and has a massive fan base that ensures her success. You'd think, this is in the article, you'd think Swift would be celebrating and embracing new talent, not trying to overshadow them. Her focus should be on enjoying her well-earned status and supporting emerging artists. By doing this, she could help foster a more inclusive and supportive music industry where everyone has a fair shot at the spotlight. And then John Nolte writes, by the way, that was written by a guy.
I'll take your man card, please. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
This absurd mentality is one of the reasons why entertainment is so objectively awful today. Most movies suck. TV is either lousy or another version of Law and Order.
It's gotten so old now it's Law and Order COPD.
Oh, my gosh. And that episode would feature Lenny's son, who doesn't drink as a detective, but he does smoke.
He smokes like a breaker.
The music industry is all but dead. Why? Because instead of the fierce and cold-blooded competition that demands you be great if you want to survive and stand out, people are cry-bullying about fair and inclusive and selfish. Obviously, Taylor Swift talent has a lot to do with her success. All right, look, I'm not saying I agree with everything John Nolte writes, but there are...
Here's where we have a problem with Nolte.
But there are all kinds of talented people out there you've never heard of because they lack something else Swift has, an obsessive drive and second-to-none work ethic to stay on top. That is true.
Well, it's not easy.
She does work.
If you know the work ethic of people like that, like her, Lady Gaga, Pink, these artists, it's a ton of work that they put into their craft, and the story on Lady Gaga of pouring all the money she made off her first big tour back into basically showcasing for a big promoter is what she was doing. And her dad was like, I couldn't believe she did it. But she put every dollar back into it.
Yeah.
And then went, because she was trying to, and it worked. And again, it is a work ethic. It's not something I would want to do, quite frankly. Be on the road and be in the spotlight the whole time, but that's what she does for a living.
You made that decision as a young.
I didn't want to travel.
Young rock and roller.
All my friends went out to L.A. Some of them actually still work in a couple of European metal bands, and they're doing their thing. I wanted a home life. I wanted a family, and I have a friend, in fact, who was his band actually made it. Nominated for a Grammy. They're very wealthy, but he quit when they left the hometown. He said, nope, don't want to leave. And he does not regret it one bit.
As you write here, and now we're getting closer to agreeing with John Nolte. Mm-hmm. Forget about the songwriting and concerts. Purely as a businesswoman, Taylor Swift is an absolute force of nature. She not only is looking to sell music, she's looking to make history, to attain immortality through her accomplishments, to sell more music and more concert tickets than anyone else, man or woman. She wants it all, and the best example she can set for America is going for it. Here's what's so gross about the Huffington Post piece. Had Swift pulled some those same moves to crush male musicians, Huffington Post would be saying, would all slay. I don't even understand what that means. But they'd all be in favor of it, which brings us to the sexism.
Well, I don't know that they would, because they don't promote women anymore.
Oh, you mean the Democrats?
The liberals don't. Yeah.
Well, you're right. It's right. They'd probably say, no. You.
Yeah. How dare you?
Since men can play women's sports, men need to take over. Women for music.
Right.
Man, what did I see yesterday? Oh, it was like, one of them was, was the Democrat who sponsored that bill to sign up, all, men automatically for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, now Democrats know what a man is versus a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of it. And the other one was, what was it, where the Democrats were claiming they support women? It's like, what the heck are you talking about? You're trying to, in the whole sports thing, you're the ones that say men should compete against women.
Right.
You're the ones that are basically saying women shouldn't get out there in the world.
Right.
Because if you're making the case that women should not be able to get out there in the world and compete in sports, well, then what are you suggesting? That they just sit home, breed, and stay in the kitchen?
Right.
Is that where the left is going with women? But it says, which brings me to sexism. You want to talk about ruthlessness in music business. Read about Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney, Paul Simon, John Lennon, but no one would ever tell a man to give up his benchmark to help out the brotherhood.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this is what we said, though. This always happens. You are viewed, even by the left as, look at this great woman artist, and then they'll try to take you down.
Oh, yeah.
They'll try to take you down.
Sure. That's the problem. They act as if it's her. They want you to believe. Meanwhile, back at Taylor Swift's lair, she's got this big master plan. Actually, it is a master plan. It's a business plan, and it's working. And it's not working for other artists, and it's always been that way. Rolling Stones should have retired. And if you're talking about this kind of mentality, the Rolling Stones should have retired right after, I don't know, Tattoo You. Be done. There should be, you need to spread the wealth. How dare you go out and make more of your music? Think about this. The left, who used to embrace artists. By the way, I'm not calling Taylor Swift an artist. They used to. It's not what I said. They used to embrace artists, right? You should express yourself. You should. How dare you get out there and express yourself? How dare you? I don't get the whole breakup album thing that she did. I don't know if that was recent or is that years ago, or I don't know. I see it in the headlines and in the stories. I have no idea, and I don't care, and I'm not the target audience. If I were, it would be weird. If I were at a Taylor Swift with a Swiftie, is that what they call them?
Yes.
Yeah. And if it's, where you're in the Swift boat, and you're going.
No. That's a different thing. That's a different thing. Yeah,
right.
That's a different Swiftie.
And so, so I'm wearing the Taylor Swift T-shirt, and I'm just, Taylor, I'm screaming. Tell me that's not weird. See, I'm not the target demo, and that's okay, but I can recognize the success. And I know I know the basics of how it gets done. And the left used to embrace artists going, hey. And they also used to, of course, be the champion of women. They're no longer the champion of women.
When you said that, I pictured in my mind John Kerry at a Taylor Swift concert with the Swiftie T-shirt on going.
Yeah, and his friend James Comey. Taking selfies. Oh my gosh. But that's the mentality, is that we have to go after, we need to create victims where there are no victims. You may be the most talented artist out there. Rick Beato. If you don't follow him on YouTube, Beato.
Oh, yeah.
Rick Beato.
Yeah.
He had an artist on the other day, and forgive me, I forget her name, but she's extremely talented. You can go to his channel and see it. And she's extremely talented, and he breaks it down. He breaks down the music and her band and her vocals and everything else. Extremely talented. And, I don't know. She may become the next Taylor Swift. I'm not sure. But it's this incredible talent. And there are a number, I won't say lots, there are a number of people out there who are incredibly talented. It is more than just the talent. It has to go on then to become, it's also about where you are. Are you in front of the right people? I mean, and artists know this. The artists that have been discovered over the years, the so-called overnight successes that really aren't overnight successes. It took 20 years to get anybody to even listen to you.
When you look at it, you assume that when musicians come out, that when you see them and they hit it, you're like, wow, this thing is all planned and calculated and all that. And I always thought that, going way back, and I know one of the things is after Bowie died and they did the, some of the documentaries on Bowie, like when he came out and, he had, the whole gender bending and, Ziggy Stardust and all that.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it's like you assumed, all right, they sat there and they workshopped this and they knew it. This was calculated because they came out and it seemed like it was such immense confidence in, what they were doing. This is what we're doing, and people were shocked by it.
Yeah.
Bowie was like, we were hanging by a thread. We didn't know. 6 months before, I was singing nursery rhyme rock songs.
Yeah.
He said, I didn't have any idea where I was going to go, and all of a sudden, boom, it hit, and you run with it.
Yeah.
But when they say here for Taylor Swift that it, feels unnecessary and somewhat selfish, she's already accomplished enough, and she should sit back and just encourage other artists and not try to go to number one. That's not what successful people do. Successful people do not go, all right, this is what I wanted to attain, and now I'm done. People who win the lottery may, but if you're somebody who has been in business or entertainment, you want to keep, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about many people it can be. I don't know Taylor Swift's motivation. John Nolte may be taking liberties there in it. I know that most people I know, their motivation is the process. They love the process of what they're involved in. They love being on stage, or they love everything. They love the practice, the preparation, everything, the creation of it. The money may be great in the beginning when you go, oh, my God, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. But what drove you to that spot for most entertainers continues. Nobody was saying, Dolly Parton should have hung it up in 84 after Islands in the Stream.
Yeah. Why is she out there still doing music?
Yeah.
Right.
Why didn't she give somebody else a chance?
Exactly. Right. It doesn't work that way. By the way, the artist Rick featured Willow Smith, daughter of Will Smith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's extremely talented. I mean, wow.
But just hilarious. I mean, it's just all this stuff we're doing this week this is the mindset of the left. It really is interesting on a variety of different topics. They actually think this way. It's like, okay, you got to be popular now. You need to stop doing what you're doing and give somebody else a chance.
Right. Right.
What the hell are you talking about?
It doesn't work that way.
866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The one other thing I want to make sure I say this about, the Huffington Post article on Taylor Swift that John Nolte from Breitbart wrote about, talking about the fact she's been successful enough. She should sit back and give other artists a chance. And she's always trying to be number one, and somehow that's wrong. They view it. That's not about, they phrase it under being inclusive. But you know what it really is? I think it's jealousy and envy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I really believe it is.
I
it's
agree.
not that they wish to be inclusive.
No.
They hate it. It's the same thing with the insanity that we played an hour and a half ago of Louis C.K., and we're going to play that probably another time today and tomorrow too, of just the insanity of the leftist mindset, which is the United States is too successful for Louis C.K., the comedian, and so we should have open borders so we bring the quality of life down here because we have it too good. And
that reeks of jealousy and envy.
Of something. I don't have any. I've never been envy. I've never had envy or jealousy towards anyone. It doesn't matter, what somebody else does. I've never allowed that to affect me. And again, that came from the environment that I grew up in. You don't worry what other people are doing. That came directly from my dad. You focus on what you're doing and what you wish to do, and you become a good variety of different things and lead an interesting life. But when I see that, I go, they're actually jealous. They really are. It's jealousy and envy that drives so much of liberalism today.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I don't know, and some type of insane guilt that they have.
No, I think they do. There's a lot for Louis C.K. to feel guilty about.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
But no, they have this weird guilt that they carry around, and you can hear the anger in their voice. We talked about Bernie and the idea that he floated. We have too many choices when it comes to deodorant.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the communist in Bernie.
Get a Red Eye Radio app in your app store. Then listen at your convenience. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, so Emerson College reveals low enrollment numbers. College officials emailed faculty and staff stating that the size of the freshman class in the fall was significantly below what they had hoped it would be, pointing to pro-Palestinian protest and negative press as reasons for low enrollment. Now that the college enrollment deposit deadline for this year has passed, we want to share with our community that the size of our projected incoming first-year class for fall of 2024 is significantly below what we had hoped. The email continued to note that the low enrollment numbers were attributed to multiple factors, which included data showing national enrollment trends are for smaller private institutions, along with student protest and negative press and social media generated from the demonstrations and arrests, among other reasons. Wow. I'm not surprised by it. I mean, that's... They added that it believes that the low enrollment numbers it experiencing are not permanent and will only be a one-year deal, they believe, adding that it will be going through immediate spending reductions. However, due to the low enrollment numbers, Emerson College will be conducting layoffs. We will limit our staff and faculty searches next year and carefully review existing programs and offerings for future savings, the college said, adding that it would need to eliminate some staff positions, both vacant and filled, as well as potentially lay off some faculty members. Emerson College was one of the many colleges and universities across the nation that saw anti-Israel encampments and protests erupt on campus. By the way, it's not going to end.
I don't see it ending. I mean, I don't know where enrollment's going to be, but the radicals are not going away. They have found, this tactic has been working for them, they believe, for quite some time. And when those schools open back in the fall, I mean, when there's more students on campus, they're going to be ever present. It's not going to change. It's not going to change after the election. In fact, After the election, let's just say if Donald Trump wins, it's bound to get a lot louder. We'll see. But I don't know what enrollment's going to do. I suspect that overall, it's quite possible that enrollment's going to change as a result of people reassessing the value of college. And whether that's saying to themselves, well, I don't need to go to the expensive school. I can go get my engineering degree at this other school. I don't have to be at the radical schools. Or I don't need college. I need a technical experience. I need technical training. And that's what I want to do because that's where the good paying jobs are going to be. I think it's going to be a combination of all the above, but I think there is most definitely a reassessment of the value of those degrees. And the assessment comes in part not just by the prospective students, enrollees there at those campuses. It's also the employers of America who decide who is going to be part of their company culture going forward. And what they don't want is radicals. You saw that immediately the CEO of HIMSS had to reverse it because their stock tanked. The moment he said, oh, no, you'll be great. There's lots of CEOs that want you working for them. No, that's not the case. And the proof is the fact that those investors said, yeah, we're pulling out. That's how it works. What is what's going to be the demand in the marketplace? What kind of job is going to be needed going forward? What kind of education do you need for those jobs? How much should you pay for it? And what do you expect to get in return? One of the downsides, I think, long term of this whole transfer of college loan debt is that people look at it and say, okay, these people are claiming they spent all this money on college and they didn't get a return. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. Biden thinks he's doing something good. Obviously, he's doing something that we believe that the Supreme Court clearly told him not to do. He doesn't have the power to do. But beyond that, I don't think they see it, but the ill effect of that is going to be showing how bad it is if someone's not paying attention. And then all of a sudden they hear, well, this loan forgiveness, or transfer as we call it, they think to themselves, well, wait a minute. I'm going to be, they're high school, or maybe they're past high school and they're thinking about getting into college, or parents that are thinking about putting their kids in college and they're thinking, oh, man, if it's that bad, I don't think I want to be a part of that because it's not a return on investment. We really need to do more homework on this. And I think that's going to be one of the downsides of this whole thing for them.
When you had some of these CEOs come out and say, we're not going to hire from Harvard.
Exactly.
We're just not going to hire.
Yep.
We don't need that. It's one of the things you've seen the stories out there about people, and you'll see it on LinkedIn, people that put their pronouns on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a significant portion of industry will not hire you if you've got your pronouns listed.
Right.
Why? They don't need the problem.
Right.
That is an indication to them that you're going to gum up the works.
Right.
With your, rightly or wrongly, that is the image, because those are the people that will claim more likely that they are victims if they're already using the pronouns to begin with.
Which means that your HR department is going to have a nightmare on their hands.
Yeah.
And quite possibly for no reason at all. Because someone wants to claim something all the time because they need to be a victim all the time. That's the way it works.
Right.
The stories out of HR departments today, it would blow your mind. You know that TV show, Undercover Boss? They should do undercover HR director.
I'd watch it. I like the idea.
Oh my gosh. It's you know how Hoarders was so horrible and hard to watch, but you watched it. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, but you still watched it. It's that kind of nightmare for people in HR departments because you got to be compliant, but you also have to listen to every complaint. And tell me where the radicals don't complain. My gosh. That's an HR nightmare. And that's what these CEOs see. The radicals, first of all, come in and they want to wreck the culture of the workplace that you're in. They're not, this isn't going to be DEI. That's just scratching the surface. They want to come in and totally destroy the culture of your company, especially if you're a big, profitable company. We can't have that. And part of the concern also is any proprietary issues. Imagine that you get an activist that comes in and they only wanted to get the job because they're an activist. They wanted to go in, kind of like Edward Snowden going into the Intel community. Well, the entire goal was to get in and get things that people didn't know. Well, in this case, you want to bring down big corporations, and you target one, you get in on the inside, and then all of a sudden you take it out. And it's not that whistleblowers one thing if a corporation's doing something wrong, but that's not what radicals do. They come in and they'll tell you something's wrong simply because they don't like companies making profits. And that's the difference. They go after them for being successful. Ask Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, Taylor Swift Incorporated. And that's just the way it is.
I look at college today, and I just wonder if I was 18, what I would decide to do. I would probably do the same thing that I did, go to a community college and then a state 4-year college, just to keep down costs. But I really didn't get a lot out of my college, except I learned time management.
But you didn't go $300,000 or $400,000 in debt either.
No, I went $0 in debt. In fact, as I've talked about, I took out a $1,000 loan the first year. I worked 2 jobs. That's what I mean. The time management I learned because I worked 2 jobs and went to college at the same time and did a radio show at the college radio station. So I was probably up 20 hours a day, and some probably slept 4 hours. But you're young, and that's what you do. But the time management was very important. Because learning to organize your time as a young person is extremely valuable. And I mean the fact that I made sure we had party time too.
Well, of course.
I was in college, so I had to make sure that I had that. But
priorities.
But I think of my dad. Now, my dad took a couple of college courses, but only had a high school education. Now, he went from high school right into now he was 4F for a year because he had problems with his foot. But then the next year, this is in 45, they took him in. I think it was the summer of he got drafted before Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And then I think it was 3 months later is when he got to Tokyo. But they brought him in the next year in 45. So they're all of his friends are dead now, but he used to sit there and all of them, some of them fought in Korea. He goes, well, I fought in the big one. He goes, he didn't say fought. He goes, I was in the big one, WW2. They go, you saw action? Well,
no, you got there after the fact.
He got there after the fact. It's like, so he was working as, a machinist because that's what my family, really did. And when he got drafted at 19 years of age, he was a teacher because he had pulled apart, his own automobiles. He pulled apart the engines, put them back together. He had no formal training on it except for no course on being a car mechanic. You just learned how to do it. But he was tearing apart cars and doing all that stuff. They brought him in. He was a teacher. A couple of months afterwards, there he is outside Tokyo, and there's my father teaching maintenance people how to fix Jeeps and all other type of Army equipment. And he's a corporal.
Yeah.
They didn't make him they made him a corporal and not a private because he was an instructor. He goes, everybody was higher ranked than he was. I go, how was that? Did you get instructed? He goes, no, everybody was fine. You're the teacher. I'm like,
my brother-in-law was a major and had a master sergeant when he came to one base here in Texas. There was a master sergeant there that had been in charge of this one department, and he came in to oversee basically the entire base under the wing commander, but the operations, the technical operations, and he said he relied on that master sergeant for everything. He said, I didn't even take his office. Because he was the teacher. He was the one who helped everybody else.
But my dad ended up then, becoming an engineer. He helped develop the first, the first edition of the Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile for Bell Aerospace, the propulsion system, I believe also some of the guidance systems on it. And then he was into the coke business, which is coke for steel mills, an offshoot of coal. And did that for years, and he was always like the president of engineering or whatever. He always had a high technical thing that you would assume would be a college degree today. He had no college degree.
Yeah, a lot of stuff back then was based on experience.
Yeah.
And you had to show up every day.
866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
Hey, it's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, Democrats are worried Biden campaign is focusing on the wrong things. We will get to that. Some of the latest polling out there. Frank Luntz, will have something from him where he was saying it's not even Iowa that he looks at that surprises him.
Yeah.
Because it's Minnesota. It's that Trump has a shot. He's making it close in Minnesota. And he goes, that shows you the problems that Democrats have. We'll get to that and more coming up.
All right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thank you for being here. Thank you. You ready?
I am.
All right, let's, what is it? We're the 20th of June. Where are we in the election right now? A lot of talk yesterday because of the Fox News poll that showed that Biden was up by a point, if you include everybody, which you have to. Well, it's the first time he's been up by a point since in the Fox News poll in the general election, not looking at the states.
Yeah.
Not looking at the purple states or the swing states. And so I got some response going, what do you think about it? What do you think? And I'm like, well, first off, mellow out, because it's one poll. And we've always said, no matter whether it was the Iowa poll the other day that showed Trump up by 18 or whatever, we said they're one poll. You look at where the momentum is going overall. And what really is important is the battleground states. the battleground states, that's what will take it one way or another. The general election, when it comes to whether Trump's up by 2 points or 3 points or Biden's up by 1 point or whatever, that really doesn't. That's really not what you're looking for. Number two, the polls that we're talking about in Iowa, for example, are likely voter polls. The Fox News poll is a registered voter poll. As you get closer to the election, it'll be more likely voter polls, which usually are more accurate as to what the final vote is going to be. But if you want to look at someone, I can find someone. Let's see what they think about it. It's Frank Luntz, not a Trump fan at all, as we all know, but an analyst and a pollster. And here's what he had to say, looking at the polls that had come out, the Iowa poll, but said that's actually not the poll that he's looking at. Here we go.
To me, it's not that Donald Trump is winning so big in Iowa. That's not the story. It's that he's making it close in Minnesota. Minnesota is a reliable Democratic state. It votes Democrat in every presidential campaign, and poll after poll, I see Trump within 2 or 3 points in Minnesota. I don't think the media understands exactly what's going on right now. Yes, Trump dropped a few points after being found guilty on 34 felony accounts. But remember this, that would have destroyed any candidate as recently as 10 years ago. And the fact that Donald Trump is still even with, or in some cases leading, Joe Biden after being found guilty of 34 felonies, oh my God, that is so significant. And one more point, I'm watching the independent vote. I don't believe that they're swinging back and forth between Trump and Biden. I think that they've decided that they hate both candidates, they hate both parties, and they're voting out of anger, out of desperation, out of resentment that this is where our political system has gotten. So be very careful in how you analyze what goes on from now through the debates, through the election, because I think there could be a hidden anger vote that surprises everyone on Election Day.
Yeah, I mean, anger growth, frustration growth, hidden. I guess we get back to the whole silent majority thing. I think certainly you look at the breakdown of those battleground states. In this case, looking at Minnesota, when the Iowa poll came out the other day, we talked about it's not just Iowa, it's Wisconsin, it is Minnesota, it's that region, because there are shared concerns with the population within that region, and it doesn't stop at the state lines. Now, every state does have its own issues. What are we seeing in Minnesota? Why is it a possibility that Trump could take Minnesota? You know, there's a way to break it down, but not until after the election, and we find out, number one, the results, and number two, get into the psychology of those voters in that state. I don't know that it's so hidden. I mean, silent majority, the ones that aren't making the noise, well, the radicals are making all the noise. That's kind of the way it's been for a while. You know, others just show up and vote. They don't need to get attention for themselves. They just want to do something about it.
I think, well, he knows it. I think what he views as being hidden is that the media hasn't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. It's for some reason it's a secret to the media that they can't figure it out. Now, we had said this afterwards, and we had said going into this, especially after the civil vote, we said we don't know if this is going to make much of a difference at all. And one of the reasons, I think the Wall Street Journal had an editorial the other day on this. They go, it's a lawfare. People don't, you know, it's here it is. Why this Michael McConnell? Why Republicans don't abandon a felon Trump? They see Democrats' political use of the justice system as a more serious threat to democracy. End of story, right there. Yeah. This is unprecedented, and we know they made up the crime. There is no crime. And they made up a crime. They got a rogue prosecutor, a rogue judge, and that worries the hell out of Republicans. Now, how independents are going to respond. But if you're angry right now, what are you angry at? If you're an independent and you're angry, as Luntz said, because you didn't get into the specifics of what they're angry about, what are they angry about? Well, they're angry the two parties. What does that mean, they're angry about the two parties?
Well, that's the populist cop-out.
Right, and exactly. That's what I was going to say. Exactly. Well, I think both ways. No, there are specific things that people are angry about. They're angry about inflation.
Yep.
They're angry about what's going on at the border. They're angry about the insanity of the radical transgender movement.
Mm-hmm.
They're sick and tired of being called racist when they know they're not racist.
Yeah.
Those are the things that anger people.
Right.
But don't just sit there and go, well, they're angry at the both parties because of the candidate. What does that mean, because of the candidates? Let's look at the issues, because that's what you go for.
Right.
Where are the issues and where does each party stand? You look at the Republicans. Now, you can sit there and say, we want the Republicans to be more anti-spending. America isn't saying that. A few conservatives are, but America isn't saying that. That's not a concern. The debt isn't a concern to the American public. They say it is when asked because that's the proper answer to give. But their passion is on what affects them.
Right. Right.
And it's inflation. And now they know, because of Governor Abbott, now illegal immigration and Biden's border policy is right on them. But when you sit there and you think about the lies you've been told left and right, where it's really inflation that's doing it all, and now we're in a spot right now where the Democrats are the biggest thing the Democrats have promoted this week, and I think they realize it hasn't worked, which is why Biden now is underground until after the debate. And who knows? He may not be, but they want him. When I say underground, I mean the basement. They got him in the basement. They want him in the basement because he needs over a full week of deep training in order to be able to do the debate.
Yeah, right.
They also don't want him out in the public. Karine Jean-Pierre, they don't want anything coming out of the White House. There is because if they thought that Karine Jean-Pierre every day with Biden preparing to do this thing, and Biden's still going to be paying attention, but what they're basically saying is the whole White House shuts down for a week.
Yeah.
Not that he's going to be going through training and still doing the regular stuff that he needs, debate training. It's like nothing else matters except debate training. Right. And so they're making the case that and Karine Jean-Pierre, nope, there's going to be nothing coming out of the White House at all. We're shutting down the government to do this. That in itself is a key indicator that people look at and go, well, what you're trying to sell us are things that we know are self-evident. We know that Biden has cognitive problems, and what you're telling us is what we're seeing is not what we're seeing.
Right.
And then you're trying to say cheap fake, deep fake, digitally edited, whatever. And now you saw it yesterday when they said, okay, this network said it was a deep fake. Well, here's the video and here's what they showed. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same. Everything's exactly the same here.
Yeah.
There is and the public knows it. And so you've got that right now, and you look at where the states are going, and when you look at Minnesota's going that way because they're not happy with Biden. They're probably not happy with liberalism because that's what it comes down to. What you are seeing right now, everything is the result of liberal policies. And the reality is hit.
Well, and the reality is hitting every day. It's relentless when you talk about inflation, when you talk about the broken border, when you talk about crime on the rise. These are things that people experience in some cases daily. Inflation is daily for everybody. But when you see crime on the rise in many of these blue cities especially, and it's not just blue cities, then that's something you're experiencing that you see in the local media. That's something that is constantly on your mind. And then the border thing. It's, again, this relentless getting hit with it over and over again dosage of reality. That's what causes the mindset of where people are. If they're angry, they have a right to be. It's justified. They should be angry.
And here's what Michael McConnell writes, and it almost mirrors what we have said. Most Democrats I know have persuaded themselves of the righteousness of criminally prosecuting Donald Trump to keep him from becoming president again. How, they ask, can any respectable person defend Mr. Trump now that he is a felon? Many Republicans who have never been Trump supporters, who are disgusted by his personal immorality, appalled by his inflammatory and often uninformed rhetoric, and unconvinced by his claims that the 2020 election was stolen, believe that the Democratic prosecutors are waging lawfare against Mr. Trump. Many Republicans who condemned his part in January 6, 2021, and the assault on the Capitol now consider the legal crusade against Mr. Trump to be as threatening to democracy as what happened that day. Democrats need to understand why. I'll say this more. I think most believe that what happened on January 6th is nothing close to what's going on with the lawfare, because that was a riot that got out of control.
Right.
The charges against Mr. Trump in New York were bogus. The hush money payments to Stormy Daniels were not illegal. It was a labeling of those payments as legal fees that constituted the crime, but that is a misdemeanor in New York for which the statute of limitations ran out in 2019. The falsification of business records becomes a felony with a 5-year statute of limitations only when done with the intent to conceal the commission of another crime. What was the other crime? The indictment didn't say, and each juror was allowed to choose from any of 3 categories, which means that Mr. Trump could well have been convicted by a jury that hobbled together 3 different legal theories, even if a majority of jurors rejected each one. Toward the end of the trial, the prosecutors focused on a New York statute that forbids attempts to influence an election through unlawful means. Their theory, all of these shenanigans were designed to hide Mr. Trump's immorality from the voters ahead of the 2016 election, and it might be true. There is, however, a problem with this theory. The payments to Trump lawyer Michael Cohen were unlawfully categorized as legal fees after the 2016 election. The business records crime couldn't possibly have been committed with the intent to influence the outcome of the contest that was already over. It follows that Mr. Trump was wrongly convicted. Republicans, independents, and fair-minded Democrats are therefore justified in regarding the New York case as an abuse of the system brought with the intention of affecting the 2024 election. District Attorney Alvin Bragg's prosecution was a far clearer and more dangerous attempt to influence voters than were mislabeled payments by Mr. Cohen. No wonder so many people tell pollsters they were unmoved by the verdict or that they will now vote for Mr. Trump because of it. The broader context makes it even worse. Mr. Bragg openly campaigned on the vow to hold Mr. Trump and his family accountable. It is one thing for a prosecutor to promise to pursue crimes of concern to the public, but Mr. Bragg did not pursue any particular crime. He pursued the defendant who happened to be the other party's candidate for president. And then they go to the judge's problems and everything else. It's like, when we had said this in the very beginning, it's like, duh.
Yeah. It is so obvious to anybody who's paying attention and actually cares. But there's the problem. The left doesn't care. Alvin Bragg got elected.
To prosecute a person, not a crime.
Exactly.
Letitia James got it elected to go after a person, not a crime.
Fonnie Willis, same thing. These are people that promise to do something, and they're fulfilling campaign promises to the people who voted for them.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so, yeah, my advice to Republicans would be to continue or to amplify what we have told them to do, which is you go through all the, the 4 or 5 major issues.
Yeah.
You go through inflation. You go through the border. You go to crime to fund the police. And you simply list them all out and say, the Biden administration and Democrats cannot and will not solve these problems because they've created these problems, and they've done it. For example, on the border, Republicans are starting to do that. They created the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They need to do that with inflation.
Yeah,
and they need to take every issue, every major issue that they have dominant support, and we're talking over 65% of Americans agree with the Republicans on it, and just over and over again pound the fact that these things did not happen organically. This is what the Democratic Party wants. This is the country that they want. And if you think about it, that's what Louis C.K. was saying when we played that audio.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard that audio, we'll play it again because there's been some bizarre audio the last couple of days from the left. But that's where he believes that life is too good here, and so we need to open the border and take the quality of life down here in the United States because it's not right. It's horrible that we as a country choose a government whose goal is to make our system, our quality of life better than other countries. He doesn't like the success. That is a part of it. Part of it's to keep power and control. Part of it is they wish to make the United States a worse country. They view that as a moral imperative.
Yep.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, where the election is right now is people are very unhappy with Biden. And I think that, again, the executive order on the border, which, by the way, is going to be challenged. And I think there will be a stay on it.
I think so.
But it's the fact that he did that, and you're like, well, why would he do that? It was one of the questions that even conservative people were asking. They said, last week they understood. They seemed to understand the fact that the border's out of control, so Biden went there and said, we're going to do an executive order, and we're going to solve the problem there. And even yesterday, NBC was at the border saying it's still as bad as ever, that nothing's been done. So he said he's going to do something one day, and then immediately the criticism came from across the board. No, I don't know any Democrat outlet that's saying that this has been a success or they see improvements at the border or Biden's actually following through on all of this. You just don't see it because it's not working. Things are still the same. The administration themselves decided we're going to say that one day and then we drop it and don't bring it up again. If we're asked a question, we'll say basically, well, we have a lot more pathways for people to cross the border legally because we're allowing them to do that just to come into the country. And we're like, well, that doesn't help. Mayorkas was all over the place again yesterday saying it again. It's like, this is just bizarre. How do they think? And then we played this audio earlier, and you have to hear this because this is on, again, The Border, and it comes from a comedian, Louis C.K., but understand how far left he is, and this mindset exists. The fact that everything that's going on in this country right now and how people are suffering, the Democrats actually want. This is what they want. They can't solve the problem because they created it because they want it. Things are too good here. We have to make it worse. Mm-hmm. You're saying, come on, Gary, nobody believes that. Are you ready? Here we go.
But my feeling is they should open it, the border, and just let them pour in, let everybody pour in, and then the answer, which is, well, then there'll be all these problems. Yes, there should be. It shouldn't be so great here, is what I'm saying. In America, it shouldn't be. It's a weird thing to sequester a certain group of people and try to keep upping their lifespan and their lifestyle, and just keep trying to increase that for this group of people, and then this pressure of people trying to come in so they can enjoy it, and then it gets worse and worse down here. I mean, I'm not in Canada. It's really just from down here. There's something wrong with that. That's not a system that's working, and it forces people to do cruel things to other people.
What the hell is he talking about? I mean, understand, though, this is the insanity of the Democratic Party right now.
What he's talking about and the way he's talking is chaotic.
Yeah.
It's chaos. What he's saying is, because he talks about just let them come in and then a bunch of things will go wrong. Well, that's the way it should be. It's good. Chaos is good. If you're on the left, if you're a radical, chaos is great. Nobody deserves good things.
And the system of making America a great country that allows you to go out and earn a living, remember, earn a living, then keep that wealth to have a standard of living and having a system that encourages that. And by the way, we have been a country of legal immigration for the longest time. Mm-hmm. It's the illegal that people have been against. And now people are against any immigration because they realize what the Democrats will do, how the Democrats will destroy it. Is Louis C.K. saying that in the inner city, people's lives are too good? So they need more migrants in their town? Is that what you're hearing from Democrats there? This is the insanity right now of the left. They believe, and that's why we say we're giving you evidence. That's somebody on the left and been on the left for the longest time. The problem is that we have to change. It's not working here in this country because it's working. Mm-hmm. That's what he's saying.
Yep.
It's not working in this country because we have been a country that has been successful through what? Capitalism and freedom. Capitalism, Bill of Rights, separation of powers, the Constitution of the United States. We have done it right. And by the way, we're not telling other countries. We're encouraging countries and always have encouraged countries to follow in our footsteps. And so what he's saying is, no, we need to destroy what we have here to somehow make it fair. And then you realize, you go, well, that's bizarre. Nobody would hold that opinion. That's the opinion they hold on education.
Well, think about the premise where he starts. That it's, what he's implying is it's not fair that we have a society, by the way, sequestered. Nobody's being sequestered. But we have a society that is sequestered where the lifespan is growing and things are great. I mean, this is the radical communist mindset. No, everybody needs to be equally bad.
Yeah.
Because what they want is equity. They don't want things equally good. They want things equally bad. He wants everybody to come in to create chaos, to destroy all that is good, so everything can be equally bad. It tells you what kind of miserable human being he is.
I know. But Bernie Sanders was saying the exact same thing.
Also a miserable human being. Yes.
In a different way with the deodorants.
Yes.
The problem with society, we have too many choices in deodorants. There's too many choices in the marketplace, in the competitive marketplace, and that's the problem.
By the way, Bernie is a miserable person, and one of the things is that he wants you to know how miserable he is. Before he goes out in public, he actually takes his hands and messes up his hair deliberately. There's a documentary, actually, and it's a true story.
Really?
Sounds like a joke. He does this with his hands to mess his hair up. He wants to look miserable. True story. It's right off of a documentary. I thought, he's doing that deliberately, and he is. Before he goes out to talk to people, he messes his own hair up. He wants to look chaotic. He wants to look miserable. You know why? Because he's miserable.
And so this story out, Washington Examiner, Democrats are worried Biden campaign is focusing on the wrong things. Some Democrats are worried that Biden's campaign is focusing on the wrong issues in the 2024 campaign, possibly costing the party the White House. Biden has centered much of his reelection campaign message on January 6th. Those topics are of varying degrees of importance to voters, but two indisputably important matters do not appear to be featured as prominently in campaign messaging: the economy and immigration. Trump consistently ranks much higher among citizens on the economy and immigration, often beating Biden in the polls by double digits. Mike Donnellan, Biden's top political aide, told The New Yorker earlier this year that January 6th will decide the election, going as far as to comparing it to 9/11. The Democratic Party didn't want to believe it was a 9/11 election. He said in March, I decided after the election I would never be part of a presidential campaign that didn't figure out with clarity what it wanted to say and stick to it. Donnellan predicted that by November, the focus will become overwhelmingly on democracy, adding that he thinks the biggest images in people's minds are going to be that of January 6th. According to insiders speaking with Axios, new polls show voters care much more about inflation and the economy than a fight for democracy, but that still has not affected the Biden's campaign belief. That is Joe Biden's strategy, and Mike Donnellan and his top advisors are in agreement with the president, one anonymous advisor told the outlet. The polling shows that democracy ended up as a top issue for voters in 2022, and it will be in 2024. But the latest polling taken, New York Times Siena College survey, found that only 5% of respondents primarily associate the Trump's presidency with January 6th. A Democrat strategist familiar with the campaign reportedly voiced his concerns to the outlet that the situation with the campaign is dire. Defenders of Biden point to his victory in 2020, which was pulled off largely with a message of focusing on the soul of the nation, despite Democratic pollsters urging him to focus on the economy. Other victories in the 2022 midterm elections have helped the Democrats feel vindicated. Concern for democracies have come up in some polls. A recent NPR Newsmax national poll had Trump and Biden tied 49 each, found that preserving democracy was the voters' second biggest concern, with 29% saying it was at top of their mind, behind inflation at 30%, and ahead of immigration at 18%. But you and I saw the poll on who would protect democracy more, and Trump leads Biden on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge problem. And the lawfare doesn't help. It's obvious. People know. Every Democrat listening right now that paid attention to the trial. If you didn't pay attention to the trial, you're just ignorant of the facts. But everyone knows there was no case there. That was a rogue judge and a rogue jury.
Right.
There was no crime. Nobody can identify what the crime is. The jury didn't identify what the crime is. The prosecution didn't identify what the crime was.
Nope. And you look at it and people see exactly what's going on. So, we're going back to Frank Luntz and his comments. Yeah, people are angry.
Well, what the left refuses to realize is that a riot, there was a protest and a riot that got out of control, is nothing because we know it wasn't an insurrection. Otherwise, there would have been charges. You're going to have sentences reduced and everything else by the courts with many of the January 6th defendants because they went for them, on whatever they could possibly figure out to go after these people they went after them with, and they didn't go after them for insurrection because there was no insurrection. It was a riot.
Mm-hmm.
And people look at that and go, okay, that was a riot. But what you're doing is you're perverting the system. There are rogue prosecutors and judges now going after the political opposition, making up crimes. One was a riot for a day. This is now what the narrative is, what the mindset is, what the goal is of the Democratic Party. That's what it is, to convict our opposition, to go after the opposition, to use the power of the government to destroy the opposition candidate and anybody else that gets in their way.
Yep.
And that's the symbolism of that. And that's why Trump leads when it comes to protecting democracy over Biden.
Right.
People aren't stupid.
And over again, we cover this, and it's interesting how when you get into the polls on the state level, where those concerns are, I think one of the biggest tells this week, one of the biggest eye-openers is the Iowa poll. And I'm wondering if that's going to set a trend. Is it going to remain an outlier, as a state? Only time will tell that. But people are done. When the Biden administration, when everybody on the Biden team has to defend, when they have to come out and make up a term like cheap fakes, it's bad. Everybody knows those videos aren't fakes. Everybody knows what happened. And by the way, when you call it a cheap fake, you draw more attention, and which draws the curiosity of people that weren't paying as close attention. And they go out and find the long form video and see it for themselves and say, nope, looks like he's got a problem. And now it's evident they know that because they're hiding him again.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Frank Luntz was talking about the fact that it's not the Iowa poll that should worry Democrats. I think it should, but he was like the Minnesota poll, and I looked at 538 in their analysis of all the average of the polls,
right?
And it's been under 3 for over a month now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been under 3 points, and it was as low as a couple days ago. The average of 1.6 for Biden. And to put things in perspective, Klobuchar has a lead of 14 points, but her margin of victory right now, and she won back in 2012, I think it was by, 34 points. And she's up by 14, but Biden's only up. Right now, I think it's 2.1 on the average vote. That's all in the margin of errors of the majority of the polls.
Right.
That's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.